Well, welcome to another episode of Inspire People, Impact Lives. We're back on video today, and we have a very special guest, though, with us, and Harry Wilson. Harry's a former Division I athlete turned entrepreneur. He's the co-founder of Limitless Minds, which y'all have to check out, along with his brother, who some of you may know, Russell Wilson, and also renowned mental conditioning coach, Trevor Moawad, who was named by Sports Illustrated as the best brain trainer in sports, and longtime healthcare biotech leader DJ Eidson. Did I pronounce that right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And DJ
nice.
Eidson.
Yeah, man.
Perfect.
Yeah. Really excited being on, dude. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited to talk to you and, just rap to you a little bit. So this is good.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to have you. Obviously, doing big things. It's got to be interesting. You're the big brother, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But everybody knows the little brother.
Yeah.
So that's always got to be an interesting dynamic. I'm the oldest. Are you the oldest?
Yeah, I'm the oldest in my fam. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm the oldest of four. None of my brothers are playing in the NFL by any means, but we all played football, some at college level myself, but never to the big league. And so I have a huge passion, obviously being here in Madison, Wisconsin, loved watching your brother play and still do. So excited to talk to you about this business though, and your leadership aspect, because from all the accolades that your brother gets, like, this is awesome. So whether or not, like, the Limitless Minds and what you and Trevor are doing, obviously we talked pre-show, we both got It Takes What It Takes right here. Which
man, we got some matching little figure there.
Matching backdrops. I mean, so we'll give a quick shout out to that in Trevor's book real quick. It is top 2 books that I've read this year, possibly in the last 5 to 10 years. Just
That's awesome.
A great book by Trevor Moawad. I would encourage it for anyone to read, especially given I've gotten a lot into that stoic mind lately, and Trevor's obviously mastered a lot of that. So Limitless Minds is a business coaching and training consultancy dedicated to optimizing performance and enriching culture within some of the world's top organizations and elite performers. And we have a ton of business and leadership material to cover today. So before we do that, Harry, tell the audience some more about yourself besides what I just gave.
Yeah, man. No, so co-founder and CEO of Limitless Minds. I spent most of my career previous to Limitless in the sales space. I jumped around, trying to figure out my way. But most of my career was spent in pharmaceuticals and medical device sales. So I worked for companies like Stryker, which is a big med device company based in Kalamazoo, instruments and capital equipment and different things. In pharma, I worked for some small pharma outfits, a company called Victory Pharma, which was bought out by another company called Shionogi in I think middle of 2011. And that's when I went to Stryker. And then after Stryker, went back into the pharma space and leadership and some leadership roles at a company called Horizon Pharma, which is now Horizon Therapeutics, and helped that organization grow in the different roles I was in. So largely sales. I took a stop at Enterprise Rent-A-Car right out of school, doing that whole management training program, washing cars and putting people in, selling insurance, the damage waiver and all that stuff to people.
Enterprise, they give you the tools to succeed.
Yeah, man. They'll pick you up. They will pick you up too. We should get the sponsorship for that, by the way. But great organization, great training ground, great foundation. But that's been most of my career up to this point. I got 3 daughters. I know you got 4 kids, right?
Yeah, I got 3 daughters and a son. So
yeah.
I'm the same boat.
Did you have them in that order?
Yes, sir.
Because everybody wants to ask us if we're going to have a 4th, and like the quick answer is no. 1, because I'm already surgically removed from the game. I'm out, right? I'm snipped, I'm neutered. But we have a lot of twins in the family, and so including both of my wives' parents are twins. So like I feel like you're playing with fire at that point. Yeah. So we're done. We got 3 girls and we're happy. I'm a girl dad, and my wife's an attorney and she's a general counsel at a firm down here in the Louisville, Kentucky area where we live. So so as you can imagine, those girls, including Courtney, my wife, are life for me, and this new 2020 COVID environment has allowed me to spend more time with them, as we were talking about before we started. It's really allowed me to be a part of every day, which is nice. But besides them and the business, man, we've just been rolling and really excited about the impact that we've been able to make so far on hundreds of thousands of people, and continue to, I'm sure I'll share a little bit where the business is going, but we've had a blast doing it and a chance to really go from, the sales guy to the entrepreneur, and So it's been good. It's been fun.
Well, everyone is a salesperson. My dad taught me that growing up. As I got older, I should say, it wasn't, he always referred to me as a salesperson as a kid, just because, if you think about it, if you didn't get the right answer from mom, you go to dad.
Right. That's true. Yeah, that's right.
And then you try and spin it both ways. And so whether it's trying to get your way to get a Snickers bar in the checkout aisle, or if it's trying to get your friend to spend the night, we're all in sales as children. And then some people develop a negative connotation towards sales as they grow older, and some people have a positive connotation towards it. And but at the end of the day, we're all selling.
That's
And
right.
whether it was you or I trying to sell our respective wives on why they should choose us, or whatever it might be, there is always an element of sales in life.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's right. I agree. I 100% agree. And, it's, I ended up majoring in college. I went to the University of Richmond in Virginia, and I majored in English. Had a BA in English, and most people were like, "What are you going to do? Are you going to teach, or what are you going to do with that?" And at the time, I really had no idea, right? But I think that now that particular skill set of being able to kind of, to be able to write and kind of put pen to pad, if you will, has kind of translated a lot of different ways, but particularly in sales, as I find myself, especially now, dude, like 90% of my communication is like email, text. And so how do you verbalize, how do you persuade people, how do you move somebody from here to there, when so much of your communication is written, kind of in that way. So I mean, just kind of taking what I thought was never going to be a necessarily a tool for me, and and bringing it to the forefront of what I do on a daily basis, so.
well, let's talk about that before we get into it, because I think that could help a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of
Yeah.
business owners, or just even salespeople out there. How do you do it to be effective, whether it be email or text? Because you are in a fast-paced world. You're dealing with, professional athletes or high-end CEOs that are just busy people. What are your tricks of the trade to be able to communicate effectively to get them to move the needle?
Yeah, I mean, I think the power of storytelling. You talk about sales, and that's all story. That's all really sales, and that's a lot of what sales is: relationships and storytelling. And I think that my skill set, at least as a writer, when I was an English major, back when I was 18 to 22 years old, was I could write, and I was a really good creative writer. And so I've been able to take some of those tools. So when I'm writing an email, whether it be to my team, just trying to, motivate, right, or whether it be, to a client or a decision maker, or just a relationship that I built with a client, and I don't care if it's 2 sentences or 2 paragraphs, just trying to make sure at the end of the day that email tells a story,
Yeah.
and, with a beginning, middle, and end, with a thesis, right, with a conclusion, really clear, painting a picture, whatever it might be, being able to do that, I think is critical. So that's what I try to focus on. I mean, truthfully, in any email that I write, I want to try to tell, whether it be a short story, a quick story, or something that's a little more detailed, be able to kind of create that type of emotion from and response from it. So that's what I try to do. Yeah.
Any subject line tips?
Oh man, that's a good one. I mean, well, honestly, I think that, what happens a lot that kind of bugs me is when people just put like FYI in the subject, and then you're like, what the hell is this? Because part of it's just because later I'm going to go I'm trying to find this email, and I don't know what to put in the, I'm looking for the subject, I'm trying to search what it might be, and I can't find it. It says it says FYI.
Yeah.
So I just try to, like, if I were to sum up that thesis, if you will, in that, of like the objective of that email in 3 to 5 words or less, really, then that's what I try to do. You don't want to make the subject too long. Most people don't make it detailed enough, so you don't know what's in there, especially if you're sending these kind of emails. If you're a salesperson sending these kind of emails to somebody who may not know you very well, doesn't know what your objective is. I'm a CEO of a company, so I don't, if you go into my email inbox right now, there's gonna be a lot of emails that are still bold because I haven't read them,
Yep.
Some of it's because I either know I know what's in there and it doesn't interest me, or I have no idea what's in there and I just haven't gotten to it yet. And so it's going to fall down that list of emails. So if there's a lot of email communication, I would really focus on telling the story, not only in the body of the email, but certainly in the subject too. I think it's a great point, man. I haven't really thought about that like that much, really. But I think that's the approach,
Well, I deal with 100. Let's say I have 101 advisors currently underneath me,
Uh-huh.
and I know, because most of them are ADD like me, that if we don't capture their attention on the subject line, that it's probably not going to get read.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked the question, because I know from my own experience, and I'm teaching my team that's not advisors how to communicate with the advisor mind. It's the business owner mind. It's, hey, I need to know and prioritize what's important, and that subject line is going to tell me if this is important or not. Do you use PS at all in your emails?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So this was a trick that I learned from, I don't know if it was Simon Sinek or one of those experts out there that talks about the most read letter or most read sentence of a bank letter when they're marketing to you is PS.
Really?
So they
I didn't know
bold
that.
it, they italicize it, they sometimes underline it, because if you open that letter, you might skim, big bold PS, you read it. And then you
Yeah.
decide if you're going to throw that away or keep it.
I'm gonna start
So
using that. I haven't seen that, so I'll have to. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna check that. I'm gonna give that a shot. My next 3 or 4 emails and see if it generates any new kind of communication
maybe,
or
yeah,
whatever.
maybe.
Yeah, I like
I
that.
try it sometimes. I don't know that I've received a ton of feedback positively or negatively, but
Sure.
I always remember that piece of advice, because I did then start, that law of attraction. You start opening bank mailers and you're like, every single one of them has at least one PS, sometimes a
Yeah.
PSS. And so it's like, okay, interesting. So there's something to it. One
Yeah.
of the tricks of the trade that I utilize email wise, I learned this from a neuroscientist, is if you tell someone you're going to do something, in that response, write Harry, comma, as promised, comma, and then your answer or whatever you were following up on. That as promised is a mental reminder to that person that you said you were going to do something and
And
you
you did
followed
it.
through on it.
Right.
And that's a very honored trait from old to new. Like, we all appreciate people that do what they say they're going to do.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
I love
like
using
that.
that.
Yeah, I like that. Man, it's like, listen. Language is important. And we talk about that a lot with some of what we do in our curriculum and stuff and content. I'm talking about language, whether it be what we say to ourselves or what we say to other people, how we package it up. Sales, like you said, is kind of a little part of everything. Part of what all of us do. And language is so important. How we utilize it, the timing of it. And so it makes a ton of sense. And these are things that some people that are listening might do on accident. Kind of unconsciously competent at that kind of thing. But it'd be great if you can be kind of consciously competent and really know why you're doing it, how it's impacting people, how it's not impacting people, and vice versa. Because not everybody's the same type of, learner or kind of recipient of information. So as you get to know your people, as you build teams, and I might send one email to you, but then to Chad, I'm saying it differently, right? Or to Courtney, I'm saying it differently, whatever it might be, just because I know how they receive this stuff. So language is critical. So I think that's a great point.
And that takes time and effort, which a lot of people don't necessarily take the time to do. But if it's really important, you better take that time and effort to make sure that you're sending the right message to the right person.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's go back a little bit. What was I want to go back to early on part of your life, and then transitioning from college sports to the corporate world. I always love to ask that of athletes, because there's so many athletes that'll listen to our show, whether it's at UW or elsewhere. We're getting responses from across the country now, which is kind of cool to see the growth. But so what was family life like growing up for you, and being in a competitive family, obviously athletic family? Tell us a little bit about that. You being the oldest, I have my experience, but I like to ask others as well.
Yeah. High expectations, man. I came up in a family that, listen, a family of color, Black family, that lived in the suburbs, right? So like everybody knew who we were for sure. We didn't know who everybody else was. Everybody knew who we were, right? For mostly good reasons, I think, but also because we looked different, And so my mom and dad spent a lot of time. Looking back now, I know they spent a lot of time preparing us for that, which I didn't really realize initially, kind of during those moments. But looking back as a father, especially in 2020 and the times we're in, my parents spent a lot of time prepping us for that. So, also we grew the kind of the high expectations and the excellence part comes from, I think, education. So, listen, I had a father who grew up in Jackson, Mississippi in the 50s, right? And whose father had a PhD that he got in the early 50s, which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then his father spent had the wherewithal to send his 4 sons. He ended up having 6 kids, but his first 4 were sons. He sent them all up to Wilbraham and Munson, which is a prep school in Springfield, Massachusetts. So as you can imagine, they stuck out like sore thumbs up there, right? but they excelled. And then he went on to Dartmouth. My dad went on to Dartmouth College with his brothers, um,
Wow.
and played football and baseball there and did well in school. Then he went to law school at UVA, University of Virginia, which I think currently is a pretty strong law school, right? I think it
Yeah.
was then too. So went to UVA, did really well there, and then decided he wanted to try out for the San Diego Chargers and take his shot in the NFL, and he did that. And when he got cut, he had a job waiting for him at Procter and Gamble in Cincinnati, and so he worked at P&G. He was an attorney at P&G, and then moved us. Ultimately, I was born there. My brother Russell was born there. My sister was born in Richmond, but we moved to Richmond in about, I guess must have been, gosh, this must have been like January 1990, I think. And so my brother must have been maybe just turned 2 potentially, and I was 6 turning 7, and moved to Richmond. And my dad was a firm called McGuire Woods Battle and Booth, did really well. And at some point starting his own law firm. He got sick, and then he passed away in 2010. But like growing up, man, it was just a lot of like excellence and like and high expectations. You know, yes, we were athletes, but I think we wouldn't be allowed to hit the field, if you will, or play or whatever if we didn't have our grades in order, right?
Yeah.
Or if at least if we didn't present ourselves in the right way, and so on and so forth. So my dad carried that a lot with us. So I mean, like we'd go places, and my dad would usher us around, and we'd be shaking hands, firm handshakes. You know, he'd critique us on how we locked eyes with whoever the grown up was in the room. He'd take it to the barbershop. He wants you to act a certain way, and so there was a lot of like that where you'd roll your eyes but again, I think our dad was preparing us for what would be required of us along the way,
Yeah.
and looking back, he did a tremendous job of that. So I mean, there's so much I could say, but I think if I were to sum it up, it would just be high expectations, kind of quest for excellence, being put in position to compete a lot.
Yeah.
So going to certain schools that would require us to step up our game and like really compete if we wanted to be in the mix and be go to get to where we wanted to get. And so with that came a lot of sacrifice from my parents and then stepping out. So I mean, we were blessed, man. We had fantastic parents and that really set us up for success. And by doing so, the way they did that was kind of putting us in position to fail a lot too, So, but I think that's what set us up for success along the way. So,
I heard a story that your dad had a phrase that he repeated to you guys. It was the "Why not you?"
mm-hmm.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I always joked that he didn't say that to me as much as he said it to Russell. I don't know. Maybe that's a little harbinger. That was a little harbinger for the future, I suppose. But no, I mean, I think. Listen, my dad was a big dreamer. That's the thing that I think my brother and my dad, observationally, and I guess me as well. I have a harder time kind of critiquing myself in this way. But if I look at my brother and my sister, they really carry that torch that my dad had, which is this dreaming big kind of quality. I've shared this story before, but obviously certainly not with you and your audience. But my dad got really sick in about 2007, 2008. And had a series of issues that are as a response to his challenges with diabetes. He had all the things that diabetics could have if they're not really super compliant patients, and if they don't really control the disease. So they ended up having some neuropathy in the feet, which is common, but that a lot of times that neuropathy in the feet can turn into a sore that ends up being infected, and that's what you worry about, and all the complications from infection. Well, he had that, and he ended up having to have his lower leg. I can't remember if it was his right or left leg amputated below the knee. And that was it seemed like to me, that was kind of the beginning of the end, right? But he had some kind of gradual kidney failure. He was doing dialysis 2 or 3 days a week in Richmond, Virginia. And then he had some strokes. And I remember being in Richmond, driving him around Richmond, and I was taking him to like the grocery store or something, somewhere he wanted to go, right? And my dad wasn't able to speak that clearly because of the strokes. And so, dude, I remember we were just driving, listening to music, and all of a sudden he turns to me, and he hadn't probably spoken clearly in a year, Like, I mean, you could figure it out over time, but just the clear as day speech hadn't been around for a while. And so he looks at me and goes, "I just wish I had been a success." And that was just random. And I just rattled off like some of the accomplishments of my father, right? And so to me, what I knew about my dad is that he had so much more on like kind of planned, and so much more that he had envisioned that he would achieve. And, you know, I can imagine my dad being the governor of Virginia one day, right?
Yeah.
And if governor of Virginia, why not president of the United States? Seems like anybody can run now at this point. So I mean,
You're not wrong.
right. And so, I mean, I think that, you know, so I don't know if that's something he wanted to do or not, but, you know, he's the type of guy, man, like I was getting scholarship offers to play football and or baseball in colleges, and he was still having me write up applications to schools I had no business applying to, whether because I wasn't interested or B, because I couldn't get into, you know, academically, just because he wanted me to go through the process. Isn't that crazy? You know,
Yeah.
but I now know kind of why he was trying to exercise some of that stuff. But that's the type of person he was and the type of dreamer he was. Like, why not you? Like, why can't you go to an Ivy League school on your own merit? You know, well, Dad, it's because my grades suck. That might be why. But you know, like he always kind of thought there's a chance, right? Or there's somebody we can talk to, or hey, we can get in, or hey, you have this to offer. And you know, why can't you, you know, play in the NFL? Why can't you play Major League Baseball? Why can't you go to Stanford? You know, that's where my little sister is. She plays basketball at Stanford. Why can't you go there and be a point guard at one of the best schools in America, right? That type of thing. And the more that we implant those types of mantras into the heads of the kids in the future, the more those things actually start to happen, right? And so I think that's what's, you know, I don't know. My dad did a great job of kind of showing us what's possible and creating a vision for us. My guess is that started with his father, right?
Yeah.
And my guess is that for him, for my grandfather, it started with his father, but or mother or parent, right? You know, whoever looked out for them. So it's just, you know, I think that's where it starts, man. That's the duty we have as parents. You know, as a father of 4, father of 3, and we have the opportunity to kind of create these visions for our kids now.
Yeah,
You know?
you're molding your kids' brains
Yeah.
and their minds and their outlooks on life from the moment they're born.
That's right.
And it sounds like the light, man. I was thinking about that comment your dad made, and it makes me tear up because like you look at, I see no matter how much of a success that I am or whether I am now or I see myself in the future, if my kids are a success and they're upstanding human beings that treat people with respect and they're loving people, like I succeeded.
Yeah.
So I could like if I think about it, like your dad in that seat, like I'm looking at you, I'm looking at Russell, I'm looking at you know, your sister and your other siblings, like, man, I succeeded.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about it, dude, and even at that point, there, you know, there was obviously certainly just copious reasons for my dad to know that he was a success, to be certain he was a success. But think about, for at least for our family, what's happened in the last 10 years since he's passed away. It seems like everything has happened. Like, you know what I mean? Obviously it hasn't, but the last big event that my dad was at was my wedding, which I got married January 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago. Right. And then he passed away and then the day after my brother got drafted by the Rockies, he passed away. So my brother has since played a couple of different spring trainings. He's technically, I guess the Yankees actually still own his rights. That's been passed around from the Yankees from the Rockies to the Rangers to the Yankees. So technically he's still involved in Major League and you know, baseball. Obviously we know that he's been drafted by the Seahawks in that whole story. Hell, you know, the transfer to Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, so he was drafted by the Rockies first for the audience at NC State.
Yeah.
Transfers to Wisconsin, and now you see the history that's been made.
Drafted in 2010 by the Rockies. Well, played in that summer. Played for NC State his redshirt junior year. Went to spring training. Had another year of eligibility at NC State. That's where Tom O'Brien said, "Hey, we don't need you. Go play baseball because you never play in the NFL." That's the short story. Plus, we have this guy who's a surefire NFL star, 6'6", you know, tall, got everything that you don't have, Russ. His name's Mike Glennon, and we have this guy, and he's a surefire, you know, thing. Go off and play baseball or transfer. So he transferred, and then we find ourselves in Madison, which was like the best 6 months. It was only 6 months, but it seemed like the best 6 months ever. We were there, and but my dad saw none of this, man. I saw it. My dad hasn't, you know, at least hasn't seen it from down on earth, right?
Yeah.
With his feet planted on earth. And so all the things that have happened, I mean, I've had 3 kids, right? Russell's had 2, got married, got married and divorced, got married again, has had 2 kids. My sister was 12, I think, when he passed away. Now she's 23, and has finish undergrad at Stanford. That's still another year. I mean, all the things, right, that have happened. And so I think that, you know, I don't know, you know, certainly he wouldn't have had the foresight to know that those types of things were happening, but with how he dreamed and how he envisioned, he probably had a sense that there was big things for us, right? And just wanted to, and wanted to be a part of those moments. And things just don't happen for, you know, one thing I'll share with you too. It was interesting when he passed away. I was living in Chicago at the time, and I flew back home, and, you know, I took it, I would grieve just like everybody else, but I think I took it especially hard, and I'm the emotional one in the family too. So, but we went to the funeral home, and the guy, the Reverend Pastor Jenkins was his last name. We're sitting there with him, and he opens his drawer and he pulls out on like some yellow legal pad. I wish I had some right in front of me. But this yellow legal pad, which my dad carried everywhere. He's a lawyer, right? Carried everywhere. And there it is, on the typical way that my dad writes, with his handwriting and everything. He had written out like what he wanted his funeral to be, like what he wanted it to look like and how he wanted it to be organized and programmed. And it was just really shook me that he had already kind of like planned this, right? He had already kind of, he must have sensed that he wasn't long for this world, right? You know, and known. And of course, when he got sick, obviously that was kind of, you know, his mortality was, you know, kind of, he was looking at it in his face. And so that's the type of stuff that's hard, you know, when you're grieving over somebody, you're losing somebody, you know, depending on how they went, how they left this earth, is like, you know, did they leave peacefully? Did they leave with a certain level of, you know, kind of like grace and fulfilled, and all the different things that you hope that you get to leave with when you go off. And those are things that I feel like, for me, at least from a grief perspective, those were the things that were really hard for me to grapple with, you know, and knowing kind of like all the things at 55 years old that my dad, who probably thought he was going to live to 105, you know, left on the table. But the why not you thing is you know, is a really cool phrase that obviously is kind of reminds us of our dad, and certainly, you know, the foundation that my brother has that I'm on the board of has been really important to us as we try to kind of use the platform that he has and that I'm kind of a part of to pass that down.
Yeah.
You know, man.
And so I want to like key in on this as a father now, because I see some of the stuff that my dad did right and some stuff he did wrong. My dad's super OCD.
Yeah.
So I do not hold my kids to the standard that my dad does as far as cleanliness, because I went the opposite path with that. But there's some great leadership principles he taught me as well, and some great things there. So I'm just thinking, as you are raising your three girls, you know, your dad did such a good job of imparting in you guys some of these lifelong lessons and ushering you to certain places, like shaking hands firmly, looking in the eye, the respect that you show, like all these different things. What are you trying to make sure that your girls receive? How old are they now, by the way, too?
So 8, 5, and 3.
Okay.
Gracie, Nora, and Maddie. Well, you know what? I've always wondered would I'd be as a father of sons. You know, would I be different? You know, would I be the same? I'd like to think I'd be the same, but I have a feeling I'd be different, you know, as a father, just because I'm a man myself. And so then, you know, trying to raise a young man, you know, into a man, that kind of thing. And then I think about my daughters, and here's the thing. I want my daughters to be, in no particular order necessarily, kind, courageous, you know, authentic. I want them to have a supreme level of confidence in themselves. I think man, woman, girl, boy, you know, confidence is definitely a catalyst for like doing big things, you know. I think that's one thing my brother has that is like bar none. This is part of a secret sauce of why he's had a lot of success professionally. You know, authenticity is a leadership trait that I value probably most. You know, there's a lot of other things you could toss in that arena, but authenticity for me is critical. It's not perfection. It's not being cool. It's not being smart. It's just like this level of authenticity that I think carries leaders the longest path over time, because then I think it opens doors for other things like humility and, you know, all these different other great traits. And so I want that for my daughter. So, I mean, so the thing that I'm trying to do is demonstrate it. you know,
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to do is demonstrate it the most because, I'll never be, what they're going to end up being, which is like badass women, badass, I'm never going to be that. Right. I'm a dad. Right. I'm never going to be what they're going to end up being. Right. Truly. And I'm never going to be a biracial, by the way, I have a biracial family, a biracial woman. Right. And so the best thing that I can do is demonstrate what good looks like as far as some of those traits that I want for them: authenticity, courage, all those different things I just mentioned, right? Just and part of that's one reason why I started this business, man. Because I was in pharma, kicking butt, making great money, great reputation, all the benefits in the world, stock options, ESPP, the whole thing, right? Like all the stuff was good. It wasn't easy. Sometimes you think about, gosh, what am I doing? Where am I at? Should I jump? But at around 35 years old, I kind of thought about my dad, right? And I was like, dude, if I had 20 years left, like, is this what I'm going to do the rest of the time? Is this it? Because like, I really want to leave a legacy, man. I want to leave a footprint, and there's more that I can do, at least more that I can take a shot at. And I'm looking at my daughters and I'm thinking, if I don't take risks, or if my wife and I don't take risks, they're not going to take any risks when it's their time,
Yeah.
and without those risks, you kind of start to leave a life of regret, potentially. Not everybody's like that doesn't happen to everybody, but for me, it would have. For me, not taking those risks, hearing those words from my dad, as I wish I just had been a success. I can't have that. I can't have that happen to me.
It's a
And
non-negotiable for you.
yeah,
You're not going to
it's
repeat those words because your actions are moving towards whatever
yeah,
your definition of success is
right.
now.
And the thing is, my dad took risks. My dad was a risk taker. So I don't know that. I just think that I'm sure there's things that he wishes that he had done earlier, or done differently along the way. But I think just doing, you only live one of these things, one of these lives, you only live one. What does they say? YOLO, right? It's true. YOLO's a real, that's a great, that's a great little
Good
phrase, YOLO,
acronym,
because
yeah.
that's legit. You only live one of these lives, and how are you going to live it? And, like I said, if you told me I had 18 more years to live, man, and that was 55 was it, like, I'm going to get some shit done, you know?
Yeah. I think
So
that's a great lesson for everyone. I've talked about on here before the homework assignment that I received of writing your own obituary.
mm,
And it's so morbid to think about, but it's such a powerful exercise because you actually can write, like, what do you want? So you're actually imagining yourself at your own funeral. What do you want people to say about you? What does the paper say about you? How did you live your life? And then you can reflect, am I on that train right now? So for you having that epiphany at 35, that, hey, I'm not on the train that's going to lead to what I want people to say about me. And so when people can have that epiphany, they can decide, hey, I'm on that train and I need to live just slightly differently, or I need to make a massive shift in my career or the way I'm living my life to make sure that whether it's tomorrow or 20 years from now, that what's said about me and how I live my life is going to be my legacy. And that's, I'm trying to live your life by design, not by accident.
yeah, I love it, man. I mean, you said it better than I could. I mean, I don't know, I mean, like, I don't know what I'd have written about me. I'd like to do that project and sit there and give it some thought. I have an idea of kind of, how I like people to feel, you know, um, and I have to give some thought about, especially being a, kind of a writer in the past, like what I want people to write about me.
Yeah.
But, certainly, I'd want to leave, some lasting impact, that impacts generations,
Yeah.
and ultimately just have, be able to people say there was a job well done, right? Whatever that is. Um, and one that was done fearlessly and all these different things. But it's, you know, it's, yeah, I mean, it's, you watch people come and go, and you wonder, did they get the most out of how many years they were on this earth, you know? And, that's my prayer for my kids, for my wife, for the people that I know, is that that's what they get, um, 'cause it flies by, man. These things fly by, dude. I mean, it goes so quickly, and the impacts we're leaving on people as they zoom by,
Yep.
is something that you want to be able to make it more tangible,
The days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
That's
That
certainly
is
the
true.
case. So let's get into Limitless Minds. What led you guys to start this?
Yeah.
What really tripped this trigger to start this massive organization?
Sure.
It's just fun to think about. So I want to
Yeah.
see where it started and go.
Yeah. So, I mean, like personally for me, I talked a little bit about kind of the impact of my dad passing and kind of as a handful of years went by and I was kind of running the rabbit, kind of the race of, corporate space, and then wanted to do something big, do something on my own, do something I can build. So that was kind of my personal piece to it. Show my daughters like what good looks like. We talked about that. As a group, DJ Eidson and I worked together at Horizon Therapeutics. We met there, worked together about a half decade, really tight, kind of hit it off right at the beginning, kind of had a lot of similar background. And just we're building some teams, medium-sized, small teams together within that organization, and shared a lot of kind of the same vision on like how to build these teams and grow. And then of course that led to just personal relationship with him. So as we went through this journey at that organization, we thought, man, this could be a really great opportunity to go out and create something else. We didn't know what it was. Like, dude, we were throwing things at the wall. I think we even had some idea about starting our own pharma company, starting some specialty pharmacies, doing, hell, we talked, both of our dads had complications and ultimately kind of passed from complications from diabetes. So we thought, what can we do in that diabetic space? Maybe we should do some diabetic socks. We didn't know what the hell we were talking about, right? Just stuff. We just knew we wanted to do something together, that we had an entrepreneurial mindset. We wanted to build something. And then we were like, well, okay, slow down. What are we good at, right? Well, we know we can sell, right? We know we believe that we're good leaders, right? We've built some good teams. So I think we're some good leaders. Can we go out and build something that leverages those strengths and create a product? So we had this idea that we kind of put together, kind of creating just a consulting company, him and I, just going out and doing this. And so I was telling Trevor Moawad about it. Trevor is one of our co-founders now, and he's, like you said, one of the world's best mental conditioning coaches. And I was just telling, and I didn't know Trevor as well as I do now then. I just knew he worked with my brother and had a consulting business. So I was curious, hey, dude, let me rap to you about what we're trying to do. And he didn't say much. He was just like, huh. He's like, I like it. Have you talked to Russell about this? And I'm like, not yet, but I'm heading out there. Actually, DJ's going to come out with me anyway. So I figured we might tell him about it. He's like, yeah, talk to him. That's literally how the conversation went, right? I put a slide deck together. I did the whole thing thinking I was going to get some great, I spent 30 minutes like talking to him about it. And Trevor was like, give me 2 minutes of response. And he was like, talk to Russell. So we went out there and Russ is funny because when I go see Russ, I get to the house and like, he'll inevitably be like working out, like on the treadmill or whatever he's doing. And like, they'll have me going and then I'll just end up talking to him while he's on the treadmill. Or even more famously, he'll be on a massage table getting work done. And literally I'm having a conversation with him while he is basically not dressed. And he's like watching film while he's laying on the table. So I'm sitting here trying to pitch him on this idea that I have while he's getting a massage. And we're watching whatever the hell we were watching. Right. So I think that's literally how that went down. So I'm there and telling him about it. He's like, give me the 30-second pitch, which I think is what he goes to because usually people are pitching him stuff. But like, I'm like, dude, you're going to give me at least 20 minutes to talk about this because I'm your brother. Okay. Yeah. So we talk about it and he's like, dude, I love it. He's like, I think the reason why Trevor wanted you to talk to me is because we've been talking about taking what's worked for me and bring it to the business space, but we don't have the time or the kind of the ability to run that business on a daily basis. You guys have this idea other than that on what you're trying to build. And there's certainly a correlation between sports and business. And what we agreed upon is that it was all mindset was such a critical piece that was missing. What we knew is that organizations like the one I had worked for, the ones that you probably worked for, dude, like they invest a ton in us in regards to like our technical piece, parts of our job, right? Whatever that job is. But for me, it was sales. So they were training me heavy on product knowledge, right? Targeting, give me all the tools for targeting, who to call on, when to call on them, right? Objection handling. When I get a no, how do I respond? Role playing to close. So like, hey, we all know sales, like ABC, right? Always be closing. So how you close the deal, all that stuff, right? Like all the role playing, all the different things, sales tactics. But not one of those organizations spent any investment, time or money on how to train my mindset. And that's important because when I would ask a CEO or a decision maker, hey, do you think it's important for your people to have a game plan for adversity when shit hits the fan? Like, do they have a plan? Of course, right? That's why we ask the question, right? I have a family of lawyers, so we know to ask questions we already know the answer to. So the answer is yes, right? Like, of course, we need to have a game plan for adversity. Okay, cool. And the next question was the critical one: is what is that game plan that you're providing to your people, for your people? Like, what are you actually providing? What resources are you providing to give them the game plan for adversity? And 90% of the time, the answer is absolutely nothing. Crickets, right? And so that's what we do. We provide that game plan. We help increase adversity tolerance for all the individuals at your organization and the teams, right? And the whole organization in aggregate. And so, we thought, there's some power in this because the organizations that I worked at, a lot of, at least in sales, it's a lot of former athletes, right? Not all, and it's not just about sports, right? But like there's a lot of former athletes, or at least that mindset, that competitive mindset. Some people from the military backgrounds, people from different areas. So we thought, if the anatomy of these organizations that we've worked at are hiring for this type of mindset, but they're not training for it. So imagine this: you hire somebody because they have this awesome brag book that says they can sell, and they show you all the sales awards they've gotten. Cool. Well, you're hiring that person because you're like, okay, this person has a background for success in this area. They can sell. They have this ability. They know how to do this. Fantastic. And then when they get there, you train them further on selling, right? But the other thing you're looking for when you hire people is how they think, how do they respond to adversity. I think anybody who's interviewed enough people knows that that's what you really like to get out of people, is how they respond to adversity. That's why you ask them, hey, tell me about a time where something didn't work. And it's always sucks when somebody like doesn't have an answer to that. They're like, well, gosh, everything's always worked. I mean, God, that's a tough question. I don't know. I mean, gosh, I've had a lot, where they struggle to find the adversity. Like, okay, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Pardon my French. That's not, it's just not real. Or if you haven't had any adversity, you haven't done anything, right? So that's why you look for that stuff. But okay, so we're looking for people that can handle adversity, that have a high level of adversity tolerance. But when they get to the company, you don't give anything to them to continue to flex that muscle. We don't help them improve in that area, right? And so what do we think? We think that they've just arrived, and now that they've handled adversity in the past, they'll always be able to handle it in the future? Of course not, right? So we think, just like physical fitness, we should be conditioning this stuff. So mental fitness is important. So mindset is a skill. We can teach it, we can learn it, we can coach it, right? We can train it. So we thought, let's box this up. Let's take what's worked for the athlete and bring it to the corporate athlete. And let's create programs that are not just kind of one-stop shop, like speaker, keynote, engagement, kind of like one-time thing. Let's make sure that we can do those things, and we will, and we do, right? And we do them well. But let's make sure that we're known for the pull through. Let's make sure that we're known for having those moments, and then being able to have a sustainable plan for that organization, so that these concepts and this education can be lived and breathed by the everyday person. And so ultimately, we want to simplify this stuff. We want to simplify it, demystify it, democratize it, give everybody access to it, where you don't have to be on a Wheaties box, right, to have access to a mindset coach. You don't have to make $35 million a year and be the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks to have a coach. Like, everybody could have a coach in a sense.
Have a coach.
Right. And so that access is critical. So that's kind of like why we want to do this. That's kind of how we kind of thought about the mission and the structure of it. And what's happened since is that we've worked with companies like J&J, like Microsoft, like Amazon, Salesforce, DocuSign, Workday. We've worked with a lot of pharma companies like Novartis, Horizon Therapeutics, the company I worked at was my first customer. We've worked with, and we've worked also with some startups and some smaller organizations too, right? Because, imagine that VC world, that startup space, where companies are trying to build their culture from the bottom up, doing it, starting with language, as we talked about. Starting with a mindset is critical. So it's been a crazy few year run. You've had a bunch of success. We're kind of now transitioning from what used to be kind of a consulting company to more of a tech services play. So the more to come there for those that are listening there. We'll kind of, as we continue to kind of unveil what that looks like. But right now we really are B2B for the most part. We're kind of unveiling some B2C kind of consumer type offerings, but largely we are B2B. That's who we are currently. And so we'll see how we kind of mature as we move forward. But it's been a wild ride, man. And, we've gone from, now we have a bunch of employees, and and working towards trying to
growing and
continue to grow,
growing.
man. Yeah, trying to
Well,
scale.
I love it. I love we're in a very similar mindset in how to grow. I was actually working with an intern who's a collegiate football player right now just on language. And
Mm-hmm.
you're so right. Like we're a Fortune 100 company, actually the largest company not publicly traded. And we get lots of language on objections, right?
Mm.
But what I was, objections, sales language, whatever it might be, scripts, role plays, like you talked about. But what I was teaching when I did this, when he role played with me, is I said, I was like, your objection to me could tell me to F off. And my mindset's going to stay the same.
Yeah.
My beliefs going to stay the same. Let's say, because we work in a referral business. So let's say Harry refers me to Russell and I call Russell and he's being pitched by everyone, which every major CEO or every high-end person is. And we're an advisor that brings value to the table. So I say, and Russell's like, oh, I've already got a person. I go through the objection. Russell goes again, you're annoying me now, F off. I was like, that's funny. Did Harry tell you to tell me that? And so I just went through the language. My mindset's not going to change. I know that if I can get the meeting, that I'm going to create value.
Yeah.
And that's my belief in myself and what I bring to the table. But you're right, when someone's coming into a new business, when someone's even growing in that business, if their self-confidence isn't there, their mindset isn't that I can't provide value, and they're in their own thoughts and feelings, they're not going to win those big battles.
Well, I mentioned the phrase adversity tolerance, and we call it that for a reason. So if you think about pain tolerance, right? So you and I, let's just say we play, one-on-one basketball, whatever, 3-on-3 basketball. We both turn our ankle, high ankle sprains, both of us kind of same diagnosis, whatever. Well, you might have a little higher level of pain tolerance than I do. So after a few days of ice and some stem and some treatment, you're back on the court. Meanwhile, I'm still kind of icing. I'm kind of ice heat. I'm getting more treatment. It's 2 weeks, it's 3 weeks. I'm still not back on the court, right? Well, it might just be a level of pain tolerance, right? And toughness ultimately, but pain tolerance, right? Same thing with adversity tolerance. Like you and I might be sales reps at Pfizer, right? Let's say we have similar markets, Louisville and Cleveland, Ohio, right? Let's just say, right? Similar markets, yada, yada, yada. We're both kind of growing. All of a sudden there's some insult to the business. Well, you're tougher than me, right? You have a higher level of tolerance than me. You start to figure out maybe some different ways to pivot, to be nimble, to kind of keep growing and finding new targets, whatever it might be. While I'm on LinkedIn looking for a new job because I think the grass is greener somewhere else, right? And so your level of adversity tolerance is going to allow you to continue to have success year in and year out. And that's the difference. I think people that have had success year in and year out over time with the businesses I've worked at and been a part of is that their adversity tolerance is higher. And so it's not a lack of adversity or lack of challenges in their territory or in their region or in the four walls of their business. It's their perspective on it.
Yeah.
How they handle it, the tools that they use to get through it, get by it, versus their peers, especially in a world where you're always stack ranked against other people. And it's funny because like the worlds I've been in, you go to the President's Club, right? Or maybe you just go to the national sales meeting and they're announcing who's going to the President's Club. 300 reps, maybe 30 go. They're going on the big trip to Cabo or wherever. And a year in and year out, it's funny how often it's to some of the same people walking across stage. Of those 30 people, it's like, well, 15 of them all went last year. And of those 15, 10 of them have like 5 ribbons on their name tag that say they've gone the last 5 years. What the hell is that? Like, oh, they must have something different in their territory. They must have some advantages. And, oh, they're in the Houston market. Oh, they're in Dallas. Oh, they're in New York. Oh, they're in whatever, South Florida, wherever the hot, markets are. But truly there's more to it, right? They have a certain level of, they've created this, they've really built this muscle that they can flex when adversity, inevitably comes that year. Right. And so it's just such a difference maker. And so I think these organizations, these teams have to find ways to train it, to develop it, to sustain it, to create a language that everybody can speak together, in alignment,
Hey, we've been having great conversation. Do you have a hard cutoff at 1:15?
No, man, I'm rolling.
Cool, because I want to make sure we can keep going, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to be respectful of your time
Yeah.
as well.
I'm probably 2:30 though.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, you're ahead of me as well. So.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yep.
That's right. I always ask this because I run a business with my brother as well.
Yeah.
So when you run with family,
Yeah.
how's that been going for you guys? Or how's that I know, Russell's in the NFL full time, so maybe it'll be more of a challenge when he retires and is in it with you full time. But
Yeah.
how's that been going so far? How do you guys interact? How do you, stay in your own lanes?
It's been fun, man. I mean, I probably said out loud in the past that I probably would never run a business with my brother just because of those factors and not really knowing how it would go and not really being willing to sacrifice anything for, the family, right? Like from the standpoint of not going to ruin anything for
Right.
what we have as a family. And then I think the first opportunity we did something together, I asked him, I was like, hey, listen, I want to be a part of something that you're doing that I don't get anything from, right? That I'm not benefiting from relative to something material. What can I do? Right. And he was like, well, I'm starting this Why Not You Foundation, be on the board of that. And I was like, perfect. Cause that kind of meets some of the things I'm trying to do and present and kind of be an example of for the kiddos and all those different things. This is great. And we can do something together. This would be awesome. So we did that and it's gone really well. So that was kind of our first opportunity to kind of work together. And I think that set a good foundation of, we can do this. Right.
Yeah.
And actually we're more, we're pretty similar in the way that ultimately on how we think. We're different in some ways too, but I think with Limitless Minds, it's been nice is that he's given me full confidence. He has the full confidence in me to be able to run the business on a daily basis. That's why I'm the CEO of the organization. And then what Russ kind of expects is like just to really be, kind of get weekly-ish, kind of executive summary, kind of, summary of what's happening, what he needs, what can be asked of him to contribute. And so we kind of have a good cadence for that communication. I don't tell him everything because either A, I know how he responds to certain stuff that he doesn't need to hear, or B, things that aren't going to really kind of rattle that tree for him. So I have a good pulse on like what's going to raise his eyebrows, what's going to make him feel really great about where the business is going. So I make some different choices in regards to like what I share with them on a weekly basis or daily or kind of semi-regular. And then we'll pull them into kind of like broader meetings and stuff like that. So, Russell's a good pitch man. I think that's why he's a pitch man for a lot of different companies and organizations. He's pretty good at that stuff. So, we'll get a chance to use him to tell the story too. I talk about storytelling. He's not surprisingly, I guess, but I don't know where he got it from. But again, maybe it's from just kind of the fam, kind of the background that we have. But he can tell a good story, really, that's important to him. And so we've been able to use that strength of his too. And I think it's important because he's been a really good example of what the outcomes we're looking for teams and people and individuals. Russell's kind of a poster child for what good looks like in that regard. And so he's kind of been a good product to market, a good example of what good looks like and kind of what this type of thinking can bring you as an individual. So
yeah, he's a great spokesperson in that model. Like everyone has seen, I mean, he portrays such a good, not just person, but like a leader.
Yeah.
And what it takes. I mean, the adversity that he's faced in many different areas, but I love the example in Trevor's book, which is probably one of the more famous ones of throwing the interception that loses the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right. But I love the example of Trevor in there is like, you have to be willing to throw that pass to win the Super Bowl, to lose the Super Bowl as well. And then how do you overcome and continue to move on from that and not dwell on, such a public mistake?
Right.
Continue to push forward, continue to get better, continue to watch film while you're trying to interview them or pitch them, while getting a massage, multitasking, all this different stuff. So like you just said, just great example. But this is me just looking from the outside in, like just great example in that arena.
Yeah. Yeah.
So going from there, what makes Limitless Minds different from, I mean, maybe I'm just exposed to so much through Northwestern Mutual, like so many different mental coaches, so many different programs out there. It feels like a life coach is popping up in everyone's life, like every different day, which there's some debate on whether or not those are, certain ones are real and certain ones are not. But like, there's all this stuff out there. When you guys go to pitch a J&J, a Northwestern Mutual, whoever it might be, or even a startup, what's your pitch as to what makes you guys so different than the rest of the market and what you can bring to the table?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that we start with a lot is kind of our strategy around pull through. Like I mentioned before, the sustainability plan, the digital curriculum that we have, we have a digital learning curriculum that will take what you might see in a live keynote or a virtual keynote, I guess, in these days,
yeah, nowadays.
And pulling it through like different modalities like podcasts and micro videos and and with a number of different people, coaches and thought leaders, and current people doing it, kind of Olympians and so on and so forth in our digital learning curriculum. So just multiple modality pull through like solutions. We're not the first, we're not the last that's going to do that, but I think relative to the broader scope, that differentiates us from like your standard life coach / motivational speaker kind of groups, speaker bureau. But I think the thing that sets apart the most is kind of the value prop around kind of the foundation of what we do. So like we don't come in and spend a lot of time talking about positivity. When people think about Russell Wilson, they think positivity, but the reality is that what people learn quickly is that that's not what Russell is actually practicing or what he does, right? Because what's interesting about it is that positivity is good. Like you and I, like, listen, if you could say, should I be positive? Of course, right? But it's hard. It's hard to do. It's like, that's like the AP course of mindset, like just being positive, because it takes all these other things to get there, right? At least if you're doing it right. And so whether you're an individual performer or a leader, a lot of times positivity, especially let's say a leadership role, like a lot of times positivity is inauthentic. It's not authentic, right? I mean, shit goes down. Q3 sucks. COVID-19 hits, ruins your 2020, right? Just say, hey, don't worry, you got them right where we want them. Don't worry, we'll get them in Q4. Hey, don't worry, we'll get them, next year. Hey, don't worry, it'll be fine, right? Your earnings you'll make the money, or whatever, right? It's just not. People are gonna look at you like you're crazy. Like, can you give me some solutions, please? Can you give me some reason? Can you get some facts, right? Whereas, and so what's funny is that there's not a lot of actual data that supports that positive thinking is like a solution that really works. It just is a qualitative thing that we feel like, is really more so a product of these other things that you can do, right?
It's like a utopia almost.
Yeah, it's like this Pollyanna, as they might say in the corporate space, right? But negativity, there's a lot of science that supports that it works, but unfortunately, it works negatively 100% of the time, right? And so the power of negativity is so much more potent than the power of positivity is what we're finding, right? And also people don't buy in. People get tense. People think you're going to come in and rah them to death, right? And people, people may not embrace or buy in as much. So we really spend a lot of time talking about the power of negativity and what we can do to be in this place we call neutral, which you'll probably find in It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Mowat. Talk about this area called neutral. And neutral, don't be mistaken, neutral is not a mindset of, let me be aloof or like not emotional or not active. It's actually quite opposite. It's all about behaviors. It's all about facts and behaviors, being solution oriented and being able to recognize the negative situation or the negative, scenario, recognize it, diagnose what happened, right? Understand why it happened. And then with that diagnosis, find a set of solutions or solution that's going to be able to move you forward, right? In a positive way, right? So it's really that space in between where it's solution oriented. It's about facts, about truth, recognition of the negative, and being able to move on from the negative without judgment, right?
Yeah.
So it's a space that when we're in front of these audiences, whether it be live or virtual or through digital, that people you can feel them, like their relief, right? You can almost feel like the relief and the belief that, oh, I can do that, right? I know there's a certain set of beliefs a certain set of actions and behaviors that I need to have to be good in this role. I've done it before. Okay, I can put those back in place, right? Negativity, they can recognize more because it's in everything, every door, computer, phone, text, media, social media, news outlet that they turn on. So it's recognizable what negativity looks like. So now can I start to remove some of those things from my life, right? And so people start to feel like they can be more active, more actionable on removing negativity than they can just implementing positivity into their life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes great sense. And again, like I said, I've been studying Stoicism since I picked up this book earlier this year. I read Ryan Holiday's book. I'm getting into some Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius now because they're quoted so many times. Mm-hmm. It's great stuff for anyone to really study. So I love that. All right, so I know you got a hard cutoff coming up here in about 7 minutes, so I want to get through the word game, and then if we have time, I'll ask you one more question. But I told you about the word game. We're gonna give one word answer or maybe short phrase. Can't repeat yourself. Ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Strength.
Courage.
Team.
Unity.
Power.
Mindset.
Pain.
Say that again?
Pain. P-A-I-N, pain.
Oh, well, we talked about adversity. Adversity.
Yeah. Losing.
Winning.
Winning.
The best. Winning's the best.
That's right. Life.
Legacy.
Death.
Fear.
Okay. Inspire.
Uplift.
Impact.
Footprint.
I'm going to add one more because we talked so much about it with you and your dad. Legacy.
This is more of a phrase, but like the feeling that you leave behind. I think a lot of people, and that this, I'm going to go, I think a lot of people assume that this may be something more tangible, and sometimes it can be, but the people that you remember the most, whether it be an athlete, your favorite athlete that's, gone and passed or just finished playing, or your favorite music artist, it's a certain feeling that the memories that they left behind, Ken Griffey Jr., certain feeling I have of him, hitting home runs and like wearing his hat backwards, right? Or whatever, right? Certain musician, I don't know, Prince, right? There's a certain feeling that his music leaves behind. And so I think and I'm kind of just explaining this to myself because I'm just thinking about this for the first time, but like legacy is more than just kind of what you actually leave behind, and more so to me, like the feeling and the emotion and like the vibe and the, kind of the qualitative.
That others have of you.
Yeah, exactly.
So like go to the old quote, it doesn't matter how much you know until people feel how much you
care. Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
right.
That's
so
right.
Like that feeling they get when you're around, right? Yeah, that's amazing. Actually, so I've reflected upon this numerous times of the people that I've lost in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Some very close, some going back to high school.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember their laughter.
Yeah.
Of all things, I don't remember certain conversations, certain happenings, but if I just think about that person, I can think about their laugh like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know exactly what that means, but it's that happiness or that thought. It brings me back to their smile, their energy in life, and that feeling like you just.
Well, I mean, I think laughter is something that you typically share with people, right? Like usually not laughing on your own. You know what I mean? And so I think laughter is something that you may remember because when they were laughing, you were laughing most likely. Hopefully.
Hopefully we're laughing at you.
Yeah, and so like there's moments wrapped in around that laughter, or that the laughter is wrapped around maybe, and I think those moments that incite some level of emotion, some level of memory that's lasting. And so it makes sense that laughter is something like that. It's like a voicemail. How some people, like grandma passed and you had that last voicemail from grandma, that kind of thing. And it's just where they talked. I mean, like when I talked about my dad writing that letter, and I found something in my house the other day that he had written on, and it's been gone for 10 years, but like his handwriting is like, haven't seen any handwriting like his before in my life. And it's so unique, that handwriting. And it's such a sharp memory of him to see something that he had written down by hand.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
That's really good. All right, last couple questions. I'll let you go. Favorite book of all time, or one you most recently read? You want to start out?
There's a lot of books, dude. I was thinking about this. There's a book that I read right before starting. There's a book that I read right before starting this business called The Originals by Adam Grant. Have you read that?
I just finished that, dude.
And
literally just finished.
That's a book, and might be kind of the season of my life that I read it. But I just thought it was really great. It inspired me. And certainly it kind of, I was one of those catalysts to kind of do what I'm doing now, from a book perspective. So I'll maybe say that. That's great. And how can the audience follow you, get in touch with you if they want to do business or check out Limitless Minds? How would you suggest they do that? So, I mean, you can always just email me. I'm Harry at thinkbig-gofar.com, thinkbig-gofar.com. But our website is the same domain, thinkbig-gofar.com. Our company's Instagram handles are the same thing, but it's underscore instead of hyphen. And then And then, you know, on personally on Instagram, I'm HB Productions 83, HB Productions 83 on Instagram and Twitter. But so that's how you find us, man. But I think that we're super present on LinkedIn, as you can imagine, being a B2B company, we're there. I think if there's people on this that are listening that are interested in their team, their organization, engaging and trying to up level their adversity tolerance and especially in what in every like 2020 and beyond, because there's a new norm, right? And it's still being formed. Hit us up. Like, let us know, because we can, you know, we have some programming, we have some stuff that's sustainable. Even if you're an individual and just still curious, don't be, you know, just because we're B2B doesn't mean you can hit us up, because there's things coming. And so yeah, reach out to us. You know, we're growing, and you know, we're also hiring for different roles. So let us know what's up. Yeah.
Well, it's been such a pleasure. I want to thank Mike Jackson, our mutual friend, for
Yeah.
introducing us. And I mean, it's such a pleasure to get to know you and have you on the show. This has been insightful. I know that the audience is going to get a ton out of it. But really just appreciate getting to know you today and hearing some of your story and about the business, because we have a lot of like mindset, a lot of similar readings. It's always fun to talk to another leader and get their perspective. But I want to be respectful of your time. So we'll end with that. With everybody that's listening today, continue to inspire and impact in your lives.